One. Hey, college wrestling fans, this is Johnny Thompson, number one. Today I have a very special guest on the show. For those of you that have been following me, reading my stuff for years, a big thank you to all of you guys. And for those of you that are big Johnny Thompson, number one fans, for the 25,000 people that I get a month, I want to let you know that the guy we have on the show today is the guy that you need to thank if you're a fan of NAIA wrestling, NJCAA wrestling, NCAA Division II, NCAA Division III. Because when I first started, I was one of these snuffy nosed guys that only did NCAA Division I wrestling. And I don't know if our guest remembers this conversation or not, but there was one time when he and I were talking, and he said to me, he goes, Stonebreaker, if you never would have got hurt and your wrestling career would have gone the way you wanted it to go, he said you probably wouldn't have ended up wrestling for Iowa or Northern Iowa or Iowa State. You would have been an NAIA guy or an NCAA Division III guy. And I got to thinking about that, and I was like, my God, man, you're right. That's absolutely right. And he said, well, now, dude, if you were wrestling for William Penn or you were wrestling for Cornell College or Indian Hills or whoever, how would you like it if the media people never covered you? And my God, man, that stuck with me. And I thought, you know what? There needs to be coverage for the smaller colleges, without a doubt. And after that conversation, I started doing NJCAA and NAIA and D2 and D3 and the other divisions of college wrestling. So you definitely want to thank this guest.
Wow.
The other thing I want to say about this guest is I have been a college wrestling guy. I have been a part of this great sport. This sport has been a part of my life for 32 years. And I can honestly say, I can look him in the eye right now and say this to him. He is one of the best people I've ever known in wrestling and one of the best people I've ever known in life. Ladies and gentlemen, college wrestling fans, please welcome Ryan Groom to Johnny Thompson, number one.
Well, first off, thank you, number one. But number two, I don't know about the best guy by any means because I've known you for God knows how long, and that's pretty big shoes to fill after following you. I mean, gosh darn it, you give so much praise to all of the kids that truly do deserve a little recognition along the way. And to be honest with you, you might be the most in-depth super fan I've ever known in my whole life. And by you doing that has opened up so much to everybody, like being able to know who, I'm not saying me, but a Ryan Groom or just some of those lower level guys that are super talented but have other goals in mind, right? That aren't 100%. Wrestling is not 100% their life. And that's, when I say that is, I'm not trying to downgrade wrestling, but me as a high school coach, I keep telling my kids, listen, there might be some of you guys that make a living in wrestling. There might be some of you guys that end up like a Jordan Burroughs and stuff like that. But for the 99.9999% of you, if you don't become a good human being, what are we doing, right? And you get to bring, and you do such a good job of bringing uh, light to all of those guys that are just amazing human beings and doing amazing things for the sports, but then on the outside are doing amazing things outside of there too. So I appreciate that, dude. And it's been a long and amazing relationship with you. I tell you that.
I got to tell you, Ryan, I'm not sure what I look like. I was about 7 years old when I met you. I mean, holy cow, and I'm turning 40 in less than in 2 days. I turned 40 years old. Man, where does the time go? Um,
Oh,
you know, yeah, it's insane, man. So, one of the reasons I brought you on the show today is you have such a cool, unique story that is so unorthodox to wrestling. So let's go back about 24 years ago. You end your high school career. You had a great high school career. You won two district championships, made it to state twice, and then as a senior, you make the state finals. You take second place in an extremely tough weight class, and then afterwards, that's kind of the end of wrestling for Ryan Broom for a little bit. You
yeah.
get married, you have a kid, you have a job, And then a few years later, you're like, you know what? I really don't like what I'm doing. I'm going to take some classes at Indian Hills Community College. That's where you and I meet up again. We take a couple
Yep.
classes together. Of course, I got the A, you got the B plus, but
Yeah,
that's
that's right.
another story, right? But anyway, anyway, then you transfer to William Penn, and as a junior, decide to go up for the wrestling team. Take me through that process of wrestling ends for you in 2001, and then all of a sudden, here we are in 2000, the 2008 2009 season, and now you're back.
So let's start at the very beginning. Number one, wasn't a traditional student, right? She wasn't a traditional go to school kind of guy. I moved around through foster care and whatnot, and landed with my aunt and uncle. So that's kind of how I got into wrestling. My uncle was got sixth, and then was a runner up twice when he was in high school. So in Washington, Iowa. So that's kind of where the wrestling came from. I don't know if I ever really even paid attention to wrestling or even really knew much about it before then. So I think I was in sixth grade or seventh grade. Sixth grade when I started, seventh grade when I started. So that's kind of where it started. So props to my uncle for throwing me out there. And then, it's every wrestling, life's a full circle, right? Everything's kind of comes full circle. And I will never forget, and I talk about this often. One of my first practices at Wayne Penn University, and you remember those because you were there, in that old stuffy wrestling room that was so hot and nasty. And who wants to start wrestling when you start like that, right? Well, then on top of that, I happened to have a partner that was a complete and apps two partners that were complete and absolute dogs and monsters, and really had no filter for softness, and that is Bart and Brett Little. And if you know, Bart's my assistant coach now. So I talk about this often. These kids absolutely beat the ever living dog crap out of me for the 2 hour practices
So
and were merciless on me.
I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but and I don't know if they would ever claim this. I sure hope I don't make either one of them angry by saying this. But their grandma was married to my grandpa for about 2 years.
Oh,
So
really?
the littles were kind of my cousins. And I'm telling you, Bart and Brett taught me so much technique. They taught me how to be rough. I mean, these are the kind of guys where when they were showing you technique, you were scared because you knew
Yes.
because you knew when they Bart had this half Nelson. I've never known anybody in my life that could put a half Nelson on you tighter and wrench it harder than Bart Little.
Oh
Oh
my
my God,
goodness.
that half Nelson. You want to know something? And that was a move that I used throughout my entire high school career. And I give props to Bart because do you know anybody that could throw a better half Nelson than
I'm
him?
I'm just telling you right now, not only could they throw it better, they were the meanest mothers with it too. There was no mercy in their soul. And
Yeah.
I talked to them, and I have some explicitives I usually use when I was described how much I liked them at the time. So, but I'll tell you what, that was a welcome to wrestling, right? So,
Yeah.
again, another props goes out to my uncle there because once we started something, we're going to finish it, right? And I'm going to tell you, there's quite a few times that I'm not 100% sure I wanted to go back to practice because I knew I was going to be their partner. But that being said, by the end of the year, I don't want to say I held my own because there's no holding your own against those guys. But at least I could not get pinned in the first, 10 seconds that I even looked at them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started. We talk about full. I was talking about full circle. So then we get into junior high and whatnot. And I had a coach, Tom Johnson, and who this full circle will around, but that's actually Eric Reed's dad. Okay, so didn't know that at the time, and I only heard about Eric Reed because he went to Oskaloosa and he was wrestling for UW Lacrosse or was finishing up at the time. So they would come and do some camps and stuff like that. Then I get into high school and we get a brand new coach, because Paul Foster had been there forever, did a great job at New or Oskaloosa, New Sharon, at Oskaloosa. He stepped down. Jason Christensen takes over the position, right, in high school. And that really, truly, I'm not saying that really started my career in wrestling, but like I think it changed my outlook on wrestling. I started looking at it differently. And, you know, I say it all the time how lucky I got. Sorry, some light. There we go. Some lights are going to turn off because I'm in the wrestling room. But anyway, he kind of changed my outlook on wrestling, like just my mindset, just how I went about it, things like that. And if you ask him, and I give lots of props to Coach Christensen. I see him often, but that is an amazing human being. And I'm not just going to put amazing wrestling coach, but he is just the epitome of an amazing human being and an amazing mentor. And no matter what, where you're at, how you're doing, or anything else like that. And I'll go back to this too. Even this weekend, or couple weekends ago at State, I was talking to him, and Brad Recker, who is going to be one of my assistants this next year. He's running my freestyle club, who I wrestled with and coached at Penn. Um, Brad was on one of the teams when he was in high school, one of the Fargo teams, and Coach Christensen remembered him. I mean, he remembers everybody, and he's just that genuine of an amazing human being that he truly builds his relationships first and then teaches you something later, right? So I have to give a lot of credit to all of the people like yourself, knowing you and growing up with you and going to tournaments with you, and just I got put in a really unique position with the people that were around me, that I got to learn the sport of wrestling and just being good human beings, and actually just all the different aspects of it, not just the wrestling part of it, because anybody can learn how to wrestle, right? It's all the other stuff that goes with it, all of the mindset things, all of the just everything that goes with wrestling that we can attribute to living life. So, and I know I'm kind of going in a full circle, but wrestling has been such a full circle for me. But then I go into high school, do that. Coach Christensen sticks with me. I say that very nicely. He sticks with me, and just keeps pounding and just keeps moving forward with me, even though I wasn't an amazingly easy human being to deal with there. And then, you know what? Guess who I was going to go wrestle for in college? Eric Reed, right? At Central, when he was at Central. That was my go-to. I had my wife, now girlfriend, then. I thought it was a great fit. Zach Whitehead, who is a North Mahaska grad, him and I were good buddies too. He was going, we were both going to go, and I, believe it or not, didn't burn up the books in high school. So at that point in time, Central required me to get a really decently high ACT score. And I happened to miss my first ACT taking, because I was wrestling in the state finals, which I thought was a great trade at the time. So didn't take it then, didn't take it as serious as I needed to. And I think I needed to get like a 23 and got a 22 or something like that. Or needed to get a 24 and got a 23. I mean, legit 1 point difference. And they told me what I needed, and I missed it. So that's why I didn't wrestle right away, because I kind of had my mind set up for going to Central and wrestle for Coach Reed. And then, so I took a year off in between what I was going to do, went all the way down, worked an oil rig down in Texas I mean, I did a bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of stuff, worked factories, worked other stuff. So kind of interesting deal. And then my wife now, my girlfriend slash fiance then, she wanted to go to Kirkwood. So I said, all right, I'll go to Kirkwood. I guess I'll figure out something to do there. So we moved to Cedar Rapids and went to school up there at Kirkwood for auto tech. Wasn't my path. There's some other interesting things that were happening there, but went in the workforce, right? I might be the only kid that got kicked out of Kirkwood, to be honest with you. Not for drinking or anything else like that. Maybe because me and a professor or two might have got into it, but anyway, that's for a whole nother day. But anyway, so yeah, we went in the workforce selling cars, gaining weight. I did that really well, gained a lot of weight really, really well. And we had a kid, and we decided to move back. We wanted to raise our children in a smaller area, Oskaloosa area / whatever, smaller town than a Cedar Rapids area. And what was that? We were up there for 4 or 5 years, and started working, and then realized, you know what, I am not doing what I wanted to do, right? I was working at Clow in a factory, and I teach industrial tech. I have all the respect in the world for factory workers, and I love it, but that's just not me. I'm just not wired that way. So went back to school, said either I'm going to become a cop or I'm going to become a teacher. And to be a cop, I didn't need the 4-year education, but for a teacher I did. So I'm going to go back to school, and I know I can still become a cop even if I have that educational degree. So went to Indian Hills, and lo and behold, there's old Steven Stonebreaker, right? In biology and some other stuff like that. I'm like, no
Yeah.
kidding. How many dinners did we go together and all whatnot, and talked how much wrestling over and over?
No,
And just,
no take from buffet.
no,
No take from buffet.
yes. That's so funny you brought that up. I forgot all about that. But you remember, I was about 350 pounds at the time, so I take from buffet way too many times.
Oh,
So,
man. Yeah.
but yeah, so we go through there, and then I was going to go to William Penn, and my assistant coach just happened to be, and we were golfing. I think we were golfing at the time, and my assistant coach Jeremy White says, "Hey, you ever think about wrestling again?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love to, blah, 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 whatever." Because I helped coach at Eddyville and Oskaloosa and a couple other things, just kind of helped coaching a little bit here and there. Never really dug into it very deep because, I was working a career that is difficult to, jump into coaching, because that takes a lot of time and effort. And, but anyway, so he's like, "Yeah, Coach Reed or Eric Reed's in town. He's at William Penn now." I said, "Oh yeah, I wanted to wrestle for him when when he was at Central." So then he gave my number to Coach Reed. Coach Reed calls me, and as a 26-year-old, 27-year-old, man that is very confident that he can do whatever, wherever. However, he calls me and says, "Hey, you ever think about wrestling again?" It's like, oh, think about it all the time. Real cocky, right? Yeah, think about it all the time. Not thinking it's a real thing, right? That could happen. Yeah, I'd love to, man. I'm just too old. And he goes, "What do you mean you're too old?" He goes, "Well, I'm coaching in William Penn." He says, "Would you ever think about coming back to wrestling?" I'm like, "Yeah, heck yeah." I mean, remember I had 2 kids at the time and been working out in the workforce, 350 pounds or so later. And um, he's like, "Well, what does your age have anything to do with that?" I said, "Well, my clock started. It's over. I've already went to college." And he goes, "We kind of talked about how many years of college we went to and blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Well, look, sounds like you got about a year and a half, 2 years of eligibility left." I was like, "No way." He goes, "Yeah." And I was like, now my cocky self went away, right? I was like, "Oh, uh, maybe I need to I need to talk to my wife about this." It's real easy to talk about doing it, and doing it. The other doing it is different, right? So then, I talked with Erica, my wife, and she was more excited, I think, than I was because I was a little scared, to be honest with you, and thinking about what could happen next. And finally, I was like, "All right." So I called Coach Reed and said, "Hey, all right, but I haven't done anything in 8 or 9 years, like legit selling cars, not done anything." He's like, "Yeah, we can get it taken care of." And guess where my very first practice that I went back to was at?
The same place we started, my friend.
William Penn wrestling room, old sweaty nasties, that small wrestling room. This is before they were finishing up the Pack Center. They were finishing up the new wrestling room and everything. I ended up back up in that room, and I'm like, "Are you stinking kidding me?" And I happened to have to wrestle a kid, Jordan Wall, who just placed third at nationals. So again, probably one of the meaner mothers in the world, right? And I had a 2-hour practice back with that guy. So full circle all the way back with Coach Reed, who's recruiting me out of high school. I go away, come back to the sport, end up with Coach Reed, and then I end up in the same situation I did when I started wrestling. So yeah, it's kind of a really fun. When you look back, it's really fun to think about it, but my whole life I've never done anything easy, so why would wrestling be anything different, right?
And I want the fans out there to know you didn't just join the team and kind of stand in the background. I mean, you were varsity. You were in dual meets, and not only that, you qualified for nationals both your junior and senior year. And then
Yeah.
I think the senior year, you were what, a match or two away from the All
Yeah.
American round?
I was in blood round. Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, Stephen, when we grew up, um, around wrestling, right? And again, I put this all back to my coaches, right? And the people that I've been around. You didn't strive for anything but the best, right? You were working your tail off from start to finish. It doesn't matter the outcome. It doesn't matter you're not getting what you want because obviously you deserved a state title, right? You deserved to be placed in a state. You deserved all those things. And those things, unfortunately didn't come to fruition for you, right? And none of us, right? Not most of us didn't get what we wanted, what exactly what we wanted, right? But it never deterred you on how hard you worked, right? And it never your mindset was never to go out and get what's second best, right? You always wanted what was, but we took what we got and we moved forward. So it's hard for me. And again, I put this back on my coaches and the people that I've been around. Like you guys and my coaches wouldn't settle for anything but striving for the best, right? So I trust me, it went through my mind quite a few times when I got after those practices, because when you're 27, 28 years old, you're not recovering like you were, right? And when you haven't been practicing, I remember sitting in my locker few different times. And remember, like I said, I was 350 pounds at the time. I don't know if I left my locker for a couple hours there because I just wasn't physically able to. I was in bad shape. I was in real bad shape. But, like I said, I've been lucky to be around some amazing people. I look at my relationships with the people that have been around and my coaches. I've been around some absolutely amazing coaches that wouldn't allow me to fail, I guess, or wouldn't allow me to take a back seat. They always strive for wanting to. Sorry, you're going to hear a little bit. I'm in the restroom room. But they wouldn't let me, even though the easy road is, or the normal road would be, take a back seat. But it was, why wouldn't you? My freshman year of high school, I had three seniors at my weight, and I think we had 6 kids there. And at first my mindset was, I'm as long as I can beat JV, I'm fine. I get a wrestle, it'd be great. And then after being with Coach Christensen for a little bit, why would you settle for that? Well, I got a freshman wrestling off two seniors. Well, you find a way to win, right? And you find a way to get it done. Well, again, comes from being around kids like yourself, right? Being around the rest of the kids that were in that wrestling club, right? That the Oskaloosa Wrestling Club, that who the hell are we going to take a backseat to? Why would we take a backseat to? Why wouldn't you want the best? And why wouldn't you want to get what you want? And you know what? Just because maybe they're not skilled or whatever doesn't mean you slow down or don't try your hardest. Because guess what? Just like with me and Bart and Brett, I took some butt whoopings, absolute ass whoopings from those guys. And I really disliked those guys, really to a core. But by the end of the season, I wasn't taking as bad ass whoopings, but I was getting what I could get, my next best thing. I was learning to adapt and move forward. So, yeah, that I think again comes around from the people that have been around, watching a kid like you work your tail off every moment of every second of every day, and focused on the things you need to focus on. To kids like Brett and Bart Little, who were just monsters, but still never slowed down. And just the coaches that we had just made us who we are, right? Made us the fans we are, made us the students we are of the game, and just made us love the sport and love the grind.
Ryan, you talked a lot about yourself as a wrestler and the impact and influence that coaches had upon you. You've coached at both the college and the high school level. And I really want to, another factor that I want to bring up here is that, North Mahaska Wrestling, there was a time period when even when I was in high school, they never had a full lineup ever.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years after high school, I remember talking with Gene Moodhart and Tyler Lappin. We all got together one time in New Sharon because I hadn't seen those guys in forever. So I went down and did some fishing with them, and we got around talking. If I remember correctly, it wasn't all that long ago. I think North Mahaska even dropped their wrestling program for a short amount of
Yep.
time. And
Yep.
now you guys are winning conference. I mean, you guys are right there in the conference, right there in the sectional, right there in the district, sending kids to state every year. Talk about how you went into a program that at the time was either dead or on its last leg, and all of a sudden you turned it around into a great winning high school program.
You know, everything happens for a reason, and you know, we are put on this earth, and we don't know the plan, and we don't know what is going to happen. We just got to adapt and overcome, right? So when I started working here at North Mahaska as a industrial tech teacher, that's kind of a weird story too. I actually failed some classes that ended up in this position, believe it or not. Gosh darn Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. But but anyway, everything happens for a reason, right? Never failed a college class in my life until then. But that pushed me back a year, right? Which put me into this position, which helped my family grow, which allowed my kids to be here. But at the time they didn't have a program. Not even we didn't even send anybody to Oskaloosa at the time. We had over the years that were there, I think we had one kid that went down to Oskaloosa to even wrestle. So I think it was about 10 years or so that they didn't have a program. And when I started teaching here, I was coaching at William Penn, and loved it. Frickin' loved it. Still miss it, right? But I think my deep down desire has always been to coach high school wrestling, right? Loved being in the college scene, loved being able to go work out, and be honest with you, loved being able to take out some frustration after a bad day on some college kids that needed a little attitude adjustment, right? But you know, always kind of had that burning inside to coach a high school team. And I think that goes back to watching my high school coach, Coach Christensen. And again, I've been so lucky to be underneath, and that's a guy that anybody in the world should strive to be like. He's a guy that is just such a good human being, and the impact that he's had on myself and what I watched all the other wrestlers that he's had an impact on. If I could even be a tenth of that, my success is just unbelievable. But anyway, yeah, so I offered to start the program back up, and they weren't interested. And the first 5, 6 years I was here, we didn't have a wrestling program here, and I offered all the time. But again, I was in a position where I really liked coaching at William Penn, so like I was in a good. So anyway, they started the program up. Be honest with you, I didn't even know they were starting the program up. But we had a dad, Matt Strasser, and again, I thank him every day too. Again, I've been around such great human beings. Matt Strasser is such an amazing human being. He's a leader in the National Guard. Like I think he's like number 2 in the National Guard. Like he's that guy. I mean, he's an amazing human being. But he wanted his kids to wrestle for their high school, right? Wanted some pride in that. They asked me to help, and there was some extenuating circumstances of why I did not help at the very beginning. But I was still at William Penn, and I loved it. And there was just some other things going on that worked out well that I was stayed there. And again, everything happens for a reason. And then Matt coached for 2, 3 years, I think 4 years, 3 years, 4 years. And we got together and we talked. So then I took the assistant job here and the head junior high coach, and with the idea that I was going to take over the program. And Matt did a great job of building some pride in doing this. But the one thing we didn't have was numbers. And we just didn't have that. We had a great little kids program, in which that's what I saw. I saw we had a great little kids program, and know that we could have a great high school program, because the foundation has always become little kids, right? That's where you and I met, right? That's why Oskaloosa was the powerhouse it was. That's why Southeast Iowa was so good, was because of that little kids program, right? Wrestling was so good around our area because of that, right? You got TJ Seabolts that come out of there. You got the Moyers that come out of there. You got the, all of these guys that come out of there. You got the Steven Stonebreakers that come out of there, right?
That's
There's a
that.
lot of there's a lot of great wrestlers that come out of that area, but I know that was the building blocks of it, and we had a good start to that. And we had some guys in here that really did a good job of building that that program up, or that little kids program up. Todd Sampson, who was a placer for this place, Van Z. I could go on and on and on with all the guys that were there. But anyway, so I knew it was a good start, right? Good base. And Matt did the best that he could do, and he got it to where we just didn't have numbers, and we really just didn't have the from little kids all the way up, the cohesion from little kids all the way up, kind of what we were, the vision of where we wanted to go with, like our style of wrestling and just dedication and just mindset and things like that. So took over the program, and yeah, we had about 3 or 4 kids when I started, to just tirelessly, and I have my wife to thank for this and bunch of other people to thank for this, but just kept tirelessly, just kept going and going and going and helping. And again, our kids club program has just been so strong. And again, that's our building blocks to everything. Put a lot of time and effort into that, and they did a great job. So long story short, 7 years later now, yeah, we're fielding a full team. We've got state place winners, and I'm gonna flop you around real quick if I can figure that out on here. But anyway, I'll do this. So now we have, right, those are names of our state qualifiers and our state place winners, right? So we have a vision. Did I go there?
There you go. Yeah. You were talking, but you were old. Your hand. All I really saw was like the very side of your face. I wanted to
Oh,
make sure.
gotcha. There you
Yep.
go. There you go.
Yeah.
So is that better there? So you
That's
guys can see, right? Now we have a vision. We want our state place winners over here, our state qualifiers. They have a vision of where they want to be and what they want to do and all the rest of that, right? So, yeah. So again, I can't say it enough. This all stems from the people that I've been around, the coaches that I've coached with, the wrestlers that I wrestled with. Um, it's all come together to kind of build where we're at. And, God puts us in the right place at the right time with the right people to be successful. And you just got to accept it and move on. And like I said, we just have some really hardworking kids that see a vision, and we're moving on, right? I wanted other people to place, and before that, but it was pretty special. My son was the first one to place in like 20, I think it was 25 years was the difference in there. 26 years was the difference. So that was kind of special, and he's placed since, and my other son placed, and there's just there's some real cool stuff going on right now in North Mahaska.
Ryan, unfortunately, I do have a time limit on here, and we are kind of running out of time. But I do want to ask you one last question because I'd like to get your opinions and views on this. Your daughter
My
also
daughter.
took up wrestling. Libby Groom took up wrestling as well. And I just want to get your opinions. Women's wrestling was something when we were little. You might see like 1 or 2 girls the entire year out for the sport. And now it's like, man, like almost every high school has wrestling. The colleges are getting wrestling. It's just like, and we're discovering, my God, why didn't we have this 25, 30 years ago? This is great.
Yes.
So
Great.
what are your opinions on the whole women's wrestling movement?
Number one, I've said this since the beginning. They are we struggled. We almost lost wrestling in the Olympics, right? So I consider that our low point, right? But right now, women's wrestling is saving wrestling. It has brought so much excitement and just so much opportunity for a whole separate, I don't want to say separate, but a whole nother genre, I suppose, women's compared to men, right? Um, it's just there's so much more opportunity now for so many more athletes to be successful, and again, get education and just more different experiences. And again, nothing wrong with women's basketball or anything else like that, but there's 5 slots, right, on a varsity women's. There's 14 spots on a girls wrestling. There's 14 more opportunities for kids to be connected to their school for school pride, number one. Number two, for them to participate and learn lessons that they need to. Number three, to be part of a team and just deal with adversity, right? And again, never will put down basketball. I am so happy that girls were able to, and I say basketball because it's during the same season, but just the other opportunity for more girls to be connected to their schools, to compete, to just have that just all around experience and adversity and everything else that comes with wrestling. And as you see, and I stole this from Grandview, championship lifestyle. It's just a whole separate lifestyle that they're learning and growing with. And women, the females that we have, just it's so refreshing. It is so refreshing. I can tell you that, and I love it. I love it.
That is awesome. I love it as well. We got the Iowa Hawkeyes, and they're already number one right out the gate. It's only a matter of time for Northern Iowa and Iowa State go on board, and hopefully Drake will reinstate their men's program and then
Yeah.
get a women's program. I'd love to see that as well. Ryan, we are down to like the last 3 minutes of the interview. It's going to kick us off here in 3 minutes. So again, Johnny Thompson, number one, wants to thank you for being a part of the program today. And as always, man, I wish you the best of luck in the 25-26 season.
Dude, I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. You have been such an inspiration to myself, just and the sport of wrestling thanks you. The kids thank you. I know you probably don't hear it enough, but it is it's wrestling is one of those genres that just doesn't get a whole heck of a lot of press, and to have guys like you willing to go out there and put great information and real thought behind everything you're doing, dude, I appreciate you and you do such a great job.
Well, I probably don't deserve quite that much praise, but it is very, very, very welcome. All right, my man, you take care of yourself. We're going to end the interview. And like I said, hope you have a great day.
You too, bud.